Near and dear to everyone's heart, gluten. I know you've probably heard of it. Things on the internet, television. You go to the grocery store now, you see large pieces of the aisles with the product that's non-gluten, gluten-free. What is that buzzword? Today I'm going to talk about three main topics. One, what is gluten? What's its purpose? What's it used for? Why do we need it? And three, specifically misconceptions about what gluten does to your body, and specifically those with sensitivities or an actual disease that is life-threatening. That can be a problem if you ingest gluten. But first of all, I'm going to talk about what gluten is, kind of from a scientific perspective. There's a book called On Food and Cooking by Harold McGee that's very scientific. It's called The Science and Lore of the Kitchen. There's a lot of information in it. It's a really good book. And he defines gluten. Gluten is derived from a chemical bond from two proteins found in wheat flour, glutenin and gliadin. When those two are mixed with water and agitated, mixing or kneading, it forms a chemical bond that starts to create a mesh. And the longer you mix it, the more dense the mesh. That's what it is. What we do with it, specifically, you've probably heard of you knead bread or you mix bread or things like that, or batters, things like this. Pardon me. Specifically dough-related, the more you mix it, the more dense this mesh gets, the stronger it gets. And as you know, bread rises. And what causes bread to rise is the gases created by leaveners, baking soda, baking powder, yeast, release CO2, and that gas gets trapped in this gluten structure. Depending on how strong it is and the type of leaveners and some other factors, how big these gas bubbles get. If you see standard sandwich bread, you see little bitty bubbles, little bitty holes, those are little bitty gas bubbles. You take an artisan bread or a sourdough or some kind of fermented bread, you see big holes, that's a big gas bubble. That's what causes that. Gluten is the root cause, or not the cause, it gives you the framework for these things to happen. And depending on how you mix your bread, dough, or batters, how much structure you get, so how big your bubbles are. So you get different types of texture in these goods. Another factor that gluten provides is two things, elasticity and plasticity. The elasticity allows it to expand, so when dough rises, when you're baking it, it gets really big, or when you're fermenting dough, it gets really big, and you knead it, or when you bake, it shrinks back down. That's the elasticity. The fact that bread comes back and holds a shape, like a loaf of bread for a sandwich or something, that's the plasticity part. That's what gluten does for baked goods, or batters and things like that as well. Batters are like pancake or biscuit dough. You don't want much gluten there because it's not going to be soft and fluffy. Soft and fluffy, very little gluten. There are several ways to get these different textures for different types of flours. You've seen bread flour. It's all protein content. The different levels of flour, like bread flour, pastry flour, cake flour, degrade in protein content. So you get different textures. Another thing that's common now that people talk about is gluten sensitivity or insensitivity. What that really is, there's two parts to this. One is a sensitivity, which means your body has a problem digesting it, and it causes you discomfort and some other side effects and symptoms. The other is actually a disease called celiac disease, where the gluten actually damages your colon or your intestines, that's the difference between the two, a sensitivity and a disease. The disease itself, celiac, does actually do damage to your intestines, and that can be life-threatening. If you don't have the insensitivity, gluten is fine. It doesn't do anything bad to you. It doesn't cause you to gain weight. So in conclusion, gluten is good for you, unless you have a sensitivity, and we need it for breads to rise, and without it, the world would be flat. Thank you for your time, and I'd like to thank my audience. Both over 16. And thank you for your time.
You're welcome.